Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome here to race number 11 of the fourth season of the Dark Horse Racing League, presented by Troy Lee Designs. As here today, we are at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, or as it's commonly known by its nickname, Mossport, as it plays host to the ninth to last race of the season, closing in on that championship weekend at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Third road course stint on the season here, just north of the United States. I'm Seth Cole, alongside Scott Rankin as qualifying is underway. Last week, Scott, we saw Henry Bennett pick up his second win on the season, but it is Robert Maleska III who comes into this race as your current points leader. Bear in mind, though, in the past two road course races, Maleska is 0 for 2. Does he snap the road course curse today?
He's been there and thereabouts in both of the road course races. I don't think he's necessarily the fastest guy on road courses. Something else that I think gets overlooked a lot is that Henry Bennett actually does setups for these cars for one of the setup providers, which is PDS. So for road courses, this is the guy that you kind of want to go to, and we've seen that from him. We've seen, out and out pace. I'm just having a look through the qualifying settings as well. Have a look at Rick Ravon. He's right there. He's within a tenth of Henry Bennett. We've got a new name in the field, which is David Cook is right up there as well. So ultimately, Maleska, I'm not seeing exceedingly quick pace from him yet. And I think there's every chance that he doesn't walk away from here as the series leader.
We've got some information on that new driver, Cook, which we'll be letting you know during the course of this broadcast. Right now, Henry Bennett, who ended up winning the first road course race on the season at Road America, right now sits at the top of the board. Matt Wagner still sits on pit road with about 2.5 seconds left. Gale Brooks, wow, hard hit there into the wall. That was just off of turn 3. And now it looks like Dylan Moskowitz as well as Gale Brooks, they're heading out onto the racetrack. Matt Wagner, who's still yet to get onto the racetrack, he won the other road course race at Watkins Glen earlier on this year.
Yeah, Wagner's been quick on the road courses as well, and talking to him, he was obviously quite upset that he wasn't able to get things done over the last few weeks and whatnot as well. So ultimately, if we're looking at drivers who have got along a lot to do, Wagner's one of the guys that I've sort of got picked out. Why? I think he's had probably one of the most underrated seasons in memory for him, and he's not happy with it. And when you can tell that a driver's unhappy with it, you hear little bits of frustration in their voice. Wagner's dealing with it actually quite well. I was chatting to him after the race last week, and he said, look, I mean, it's just not coming together for me. It's not where I want it to be. But he's still positive. Like, the guy's, he clearly understands that he's just in a trough of bad luck, and he's gonna make it happen. Like, I'm backing Wagner in eventually. I don't think we're quite there yet, but eventually he's gonna get there. And that's the thing about Matt Wagner. He's gonna keep punching away until he gets it done.
And he's still within striking distance as well, as mentioned, including tonight, 9 more races left on the season. He's only 37 points back, 5th in the standings. And after we didn't have Rick Ravon in the field last week at Gateway, right now the top 4 only separated by 22 points. Maleska III, the points leader. Bennett only 2 points back in second. Nick DeGroot right now very much in the picture as well, 9 points back in third, and Rick Ravon dropped 3 spots from the points lead, obviously, not making the start last week. He's 22 points back. Now, as you mentioned, Rick Ravon in the field here tonight currently sits in second. He's feeling about 70%, of course, battling the COVID virus, but nice to see him back in the field, and he really knows the importance of the points that he has to get. So we'll see if he's going to be able to last the entirety of this race, but credit to him for sticking it out here tonight, realizing that he's in that championship picture, and so he's got to be here every single week.
100%. Even if all he comes out tonight, he just turns and just gets points. Like, that is an important note from Rick Ravon. He's just got to be out here. He's just got to be turning laps. He's just got to make sure that he gets himself in. Matt Wagner was out on track, fails to set a qualifying time. He is going to be starting outside the top 10.
13th, where they've got him on the board here for this race. As Henry Bennett is going to claim the pole position. That is his 3rd pole on the season, and he'll be looking for his 3rd win on the season here at the end of these 52 laps. Let's take a look here at the starting lineup for this race, as it's going to be Rick Ravon alongside of him. New driver David Cook will be starting in the third position alongside of Charles Teed, and Jim Brooks is going to bring up the top five alongside of the defending champion Robert Maleska III. 52 laps here, going to be obviously a rather short one. You consider the length of the road courses we've been to in the past. This doesn't take them very long to get around this racetrack, anywhere from about a minute and 12 seconds with the fast laps we've seen laid down here in practice. So with that being said, I think it's safe to say that pit road is going to really play a huge factor into the outcome of this race, especially for the drivers up at the front.
Look, I mean, it's going to play a factor when they come in terms of traffic as well. Traffic's going to be a big factor at some point tonight, whether or not it's early, whether or not it's late, is sort of going to be part and parcel of everything that's going on. So, look, I mean, end of the day, anything could happen. At the other side of things, it's a road course. We're not here, pushing and turning left, turning right, most of the time through. So, hey, look, it's going to be a rough night for a lot of these guys that are just going to have to take their beats and just accept it. Maleska is one of those. He's very potentially going to lose his championship lead tonight. That can't be understated, because that does things to the mind as well. And I just remember back to Road America, Maleska was there and thereabouts. He was quick. He was attached to the lead group. He was doing everything he needed to do. And then he just catches the grass, spins the car, fires it into the fence. He's done. Right? That is so crucial to a championship. And at this point in the season, if all he'd done was kept himself in the server, grabbed 8th, 9th, 10th, he'd be well and truly clear at the front at the moment. But he's not. And that may come back to haunt him.
Much like Watkins Glen, which has a right-hander as his first corner here at Mosport, the inside line is driver's right. And so Henry Bennett will be on the right side of this grid to have the preferred line going into turn one when the green flag drops. Let's highlight real quick David Cook driving that number 24. Kitty corner to his teammate. He is a teammate and friend to Rick Raybon, and so he is making his first start on the season, as we have clearly seen here in qualifying. Has noticed him in practice as well. Very fast, and I got names for their race cars here as well for their team. You've got Gould Charge for the number 2 of Rick Raybon, and now, with David Cook in the field, Norton Spirit going to be rolling off from the third position.
Cool charge, Norton Spirit. I'm going to refer that. I like those guys. Raybon's just got that personality, so I hope that that Cook is much the same. And I mean, look at the cars. They're so similar. Look, to be perfectly honest, you can tell that Rick Raybon's having the time of his life this season. Every single time that we've spoken to him, he said, wind's coming. It'll happen. I'm enjoying myself. How great is the racing out here? I'm really having fun. And that is a sign of a driver that is in his element, and he's having a strong day in terms of things. So, look, to be perfectly honest, I've got every bit of faith that that Raybon's going to roll back off this week. Things are going to be back to normal. I'm worried for his stamina. That is definitely going to be where he falls down. Over a 50-minute race, I think, is where he's going to be weakest. He's certainly showed that he's good. He's quick over the single lap during qualifying. If he can keep it together tonight, and he can, obviously not let things affect him too bad, he's just got to attach himself to Henry Bennett and just make sure things play out the way that he wants.
18 drivers going to take the green flag here tonight at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. And also got to bear in mind, being a road course, these drivers do have the 10 available push-to-passes during the course of this race. It'll be interesting to follow that, see who saves them for the end, see who uses them early, especially with the fact that it's very unlikely with a road course that we're going to see a full course yellow bunch these drivers back up. Green flag in the air. Let's go racing at Mosport.
Have a look at the flow of this track. Look, to be perfectly honest, Seth, this is the first ever time on iRacing and in general that I've actually been to this circuit, so I'm learning along with these drivers. From my first assumptions, it's a fast-flowing circuit. It allows drivers the options to draft. It allows drivers the options to make some overtakes. It's got some long apex corners, you can see down there on the screen right now. They flick it back down to the left. One of the best part about racing circuits is the undulation, the up, down, all around. Make sure you get onto the throttle nice and cleanly, consistently. You've got to balance the car here. From the early indications that I've seen of it, it's very much a driver's track. You can't just show up here and just expect to do well. You've got to look after your stuff. You've got to look after your car. You've got to be smooth, and you've got to be consistent for the entire race. And there's going to be a lot of drivers that struggle here tonight.
Yeah, the first half of the course is downhill, second half is uphill, so a lot of elevation changes here, and you saw them go through what's going to be the trickiest corner of this race, and that is Moss Corner. Let's actually take a lap around here, courtesy of Henry Bennett, the race leader, as he's going to head on down here into turn 2 and 2A. That's Clayton Corner. It's the right-hand turn, and Quebec Corner, turn 3. We'll take the uphill and one of the faster sections before you get to the heaviest braking zone. This is turn 4, heading up here to 5A, 5B, and 5C. You know it's an important corner when they split up into 3. This is Moss Corner. See a lot of wheel hopping in this particular area of the track. Then the longest straight here, the Mario Andretti straight. You're going to see these guys reaching the braking zone up here into turn 8 at almost 170, 175 miles per hour, having to bring it way down to nearly 120, 110 as they make the right-hander into the S's. Turn 9, heading into White's Corner, the final turn 10, and then turn for home to the start-finish line. Turn 10's got to be a trouble spot for these guys, especially with the fact there can be a lot of wheel spin depending on if you go into a lower gear. But Moss Corner, that is the place everybody has to be aware of because it takes you by surprise. You don't expect that wheel hop, and there's just no time to react.
Yeah, look, to be perfectly honest, Seth, there's a lot of places around this track. So one of the things about open wheeler cars is that they generally have very stiff suspensions. They're a very low to the ground car. They don't have a lot of room for that suspension to activate. So, and because the body is so small, the body itself is very, very stiff. It transfers. And what I say by stiff is basically there's no cushioning really. What that does to the car is it transfers the load very quickly from right to left on the car. That is why formula cars in particular handle so well, is because they have very stiff suspension. Stiff suspension, great for keeping the wheel in contact with the ground, except in very rough circumstances. This is one of the circumstances where you run a softer setup. You want the wheels to remain in contact over heavy bumps. You want them to stay in contact with the road surface when that suspension is quite heavily activating. A softer setup will do that because it will take in the load that's being put on it as it comes over some of the crests and some of the jumps that are bumps, sorry, not jumps, I'm thinking motocross, right around the circuit. So that's what the drivers, that's what Henry Bennett would have been doing with the setup, because he does the setups for the series. Now, in terms of things, this is a tricky track. No two ways around it, and it's going to take patience on that throttle. You can't just get back to the throttle as quickly, as aggressively as you really want to. Have a look at Rick Raybon. He's attaching himself to the rear bumper here of Henry Bennett. They've both got to be so patient getting back to the throttle, coming down to this long straight, but it's so important to get to the throttle early. Raybon has to make sure in that sort of a situation, he's not just stabbing at the throttle. That'll light up the rear tires, around he goes, race over.
So far, we've had 2 incidents down near the same vicinity. Charles Teed having trouble over in Clayton Corner, over in 2 and 2A, and Mike Tellier just had an issue over there in Quebec Corner, turn 3. This is a home track there for the Canadian Mike Tellier, who's hoping to do well in front of his home crowd, but a bit of a bumpy start here 5 laps in.
And you just mentioned him and immediately had another half spin, so caught that one up. He's having a rough night. Like I said, I think it's a lot of smoothness. You've got to really get the measure of how good the grip is underneath the car before you can really stab at it. And you can't stab at the brakes at any point throughout the night. Oh, actually, that's incorrect. I'm thinking more of like a stock car style braking analogy there. Formula cars, they've got high downforce and the low weight. Normally what that means is, again, in combination with the stiff suspension, they transfer weight around the car very, very quickly. So it gets the weight to the front of the front wheels very quickly when you jump on the brakes. That means you can actually stab a little bit harder than you normally would in other styles of cars on the brakes. With a GT, Tellier once again, taking the curbing. That's a car parked on the outside of the course.
That's again Quebec Corner. We also saw Moss Corner claim Gary Corley just moments ago.
Yeah, so with a high downforce configuration and lower weight as well is very important, and a stiffer body, transfers the weight very quickly. You can actually, generally the braking pattern for these style of cars is heavy initial input and then bleeding off as you get lower into the speed. Whereas a GT car, something that's a little bit heavier, has a softer general overall layout and transfers the weight a little bit slower, and there's more weight to transfer. That initial pressure will be a little bit lighter, and then you'll bleed onto it as you get deeper into the braking zone. That weight's transferred over the front of the car. So that's just different ways that different styles of cars will handle the braking. And then of course you've got NASCAR, which what's a brake?
I know exactly. That's the question that I ask myself most of the time too, and doesn't even have to be a stock car. Boy, we got a lot of drivers having troubles. Eric Peterson just had trouble over in Moss Corner. We saw Gale Brooks coming to pit road. AJ Hobson had an issue over in Clayton Corner. And I see the 40 of Jim Herrick sitting on pit road. He had an issue take place just moments ago. Let's see if we can find out what happened to him. Oh, wow, that's way off the course there. I believe that's heading down into Clayton Corner. That car just never turned into the left-hand turn, too, hard into the tire barriers.
It was a rough run, unfortunately, for him. That's just, it's difficult. Oh, my word.
Just got around Rick Raybon, so move him to second. Trying to make their way around Mike Tellier. That's Bennett just ahead. There's the 24 going on by the 97 as they make their way down the Mario Andretti straightaway. And Cook is now the one on the attack of Henry Bennett for the top position.
I'm wondering whether or not Rayvon's had an accident, because he's a long way. He was right underneath Henry Bennett's rear bumper just before, rear wing. He was right attached to that rear axle, so I'd say something's happened to good old Rick Rayvon.
That or might be saving his stuff potentially here. Notice the 24 was closing in
back.
and said, all right, you go ahead.
Look, I mean, if it was gradual and we're seeing it from early on in the race, I'd go with you there, Seth, but... I'm curious.
At pit road, after the issues we've seen them have, Tellier, right now, as we saw, go a lap down on track, and Bennett just had an issue. It was before getting into Moss Corner, and he just lost the lead, drops from the lead back to third.
Okay, so you might actually be right, Seth, because it was actually over the course of like a lap and a half that Rayvon fell off the back end of things. And it was a lap car that was causing the issue there, so... Look, I mean, you got to navigate traffic, you got to navigate them cleanly and consistently. I don't think it's really going to hamper Bennett too badly, because he's still attached to these guys, but he's lost somewhere in the realm of 3 seconds. 3 to 4, actually, it's a little bit more than that. It's closer to 5 seconds.
Now trying to gather that ground back up. There you see him about maybe 4 car lengths off the bumper of David Cook as Rick Rayvon goes to the point. Was going to mention a number of drivers on pit road here in these first 10 laps, including Gale Brooks, Gary Corley. Brooks is still on the lead lap. Corley just fell a lap down. Oh, Mike Tellier with another issue. That's down into turn 2 again. Boy, Clayton Corner. That seems to be a trouble spot for a lot of drivers. It's a heavy braking zone because you're going downhill, carrying a lot of speed from that front straightaway off of turn 1.
The car just wants to run on there, so you've got to brake a little bit earlier than you really think as well. These cars actually pull up relatively well, so look, there's a whole bunch of different things going on. Just having a look, I'm pretty sure the tyre compounds aren't going to play a huge... Oh no, wait, we don't have tyre compounds, it's the older style IndyCar. My mistake. These guys actually only have the 1 tyre compound throughout the race. If it was the newer IndyCars, there is 2 different tyre compounds to get them through the race. So, that's part and parcel of things. But obviously with the DW12, that's not so much of an issue.
Charles Teed with an issue over there in Moss Corner. Again, though, the likelihood of a full course yellow coming out, slim to none with how spaced out the field is right now, and the likelihood that a car's going to be sitting in the middle of the track with oncoming traffic. So drivers that have mistakes here early, they've got to use the rest of this race to try and combat it and get a decent finish out of the day, as Mike Tellier on pit road. If you make a mistake late in this race, there's just no time for recovery. I'll see if I can quickly here be able to get the rest of the drivers. Nope, Jeff Heisong with an issue. That was, I believe, over in Quebec Corner, turn 3 for him. So drop him back to the 10th position. But Jimmy Drynan, Charles Teed, AJ Hobson, Mike Tellier, Gale Brooks, Jim Herrick, all those drivers, they've already been to pit lane to repair damage sustained in the first 10 laps of this race.
And that's not good for those guys as well. 52 laps is the distance. We're just over a fifth of the way through this one. So 20% of the race done, and those guys are already struggling. From their perspective, they've now got a responsibility. They've got to back everything down, take it a lot easier. Mistakes. Here's what happens in a driver's mindset. Yes, you've got to be quick. You've definitely got to have that one-lap pace. Talking about one-lap pace, driver off the road, Rick Ravon.
Able to save it there. Boy, Moss Corner has been an issue for quite a number of our front runners. Henry Bennett had an issue with it a few laps ago. Now Rick Ravon this lap. David Cook going to go to the point, leaving Bennett and Ravon to battle for the for the second position, I should say, down the Mario Andretti straightaway. Looks like Ravon's going to hold on to the spot for the time being.
Oh, Talia had a big lock up, a big bobble on the brakes there as well, just in front of our front runners. Ravon hangs onto it. I'm not 100% sure if Henry Bennett was happy with that one, because to be perfectly honest, Ravon kind of held him up a fair way, which is only playing into the teammates' hands. We might actually have, for the first time this season, a team to take it to De Groot and co. So I think this is interesting, playing on from next week when we head back to the ovals, when you get teammates working together.
Yeah, last year it was basically Twisted Trojan Motorsports versus Factory Back Motorsports for trips to victory lane. Now you got Rick Ravon and his buddy Cook, as Eric Peterson is coming to pit road. I saw him slowing on the telemetry. I believe this is a potentially regularly scheduled stop for him. He did have a spin earlier on, but I didn't see him sustain any damage from it. As he'll pull into his pit stall.
Spin! It's Jim Herrick. He's backwards, I believe that was over in Quebec, actually, and he's going to just tow back to pit lane, so he's done.
Jimmy Drynan with an issue. Oh! Almost collected up. I think that was Moskowitz coming into view. That was down in turn 3. Now he's going to be able to get the thing refired and continue on. Close call there. Moskowitz running in the 10th position. David Cook now has 2 seconds. Now almost 2.5 seconds back to Rick Ravon. I want to make one amendment there on Jimmy Drynan, though. I believe I named him as a driver that had been to pit lane for damage repair in the first 10 laps. He actually started this race from pit road. Actually,
I'm not sure he did. Matt Wagner did. Matt Wagner started from pit road, and he's actually up to P8 at this point in time. Oh, big issue for AJ Hobson! Claps the curb, bounces the car back off onto the grass on the left-hand side, fires it off into the fence, and that is the nose cone that's missing, and if there is no fast repair left for him, that will be night over.
He does have a fast repair available to him. That's a great point as well, that these drivers do have a little bit of a mulligan. They do have a fast repair available should they need it. Several drivers have used theirs that are still out on the racetrack, including Eric Peterson, Charles Teed, and Jimmy Drynan. Jim Herrick and Gale Brooks, they used theirs, ran into more issues. Those two are out of the race. They will finish 17th and 18th respectively here tonight. So 16 drivers still have to stick it out, and we haven't even really reached halfway. Right now we're almost reaching a third of the way through. We still got about 4 or 5 more laps before we even hit that point.
There's a couple battles around the track that are starting to sort of fire up a little bit. Matt Wagner is closing in on Eric Schaus and Jim Brooks. This is going to be a battle. He was a little bit closer a couple laps ago, so I wonder if lap traffic might have gotten in the way there and caused something. But Jim Brooks and Eric Schaus have just been attached to each other for the battle for 6th position. This one's going to rage all night long, I feel. These guys are just sort of attached to each other. If you talk in terms of qualifying pace, there was less than half a second between these two guys, and qualifying pace does not equate to race pace. Race pace so different for these guys, especially now the cars are going to be a fair bit lighter with a lot less fuel on board.
I mentioned the fact that Mosport has the right-hand turn 1, much like Watkins Glen, but there's only that's similar between those two tracks. Bear in mind, though, that Eric Schaus running in 7th, Matt Wagner running in 8th. The two of them have something in common. They've both won at Watkins Glen. Wagner this season and Schaus last season.
Well, that battle will rage.
No, I'm sorry. Schaus did not win Watkins Glen last season. He was up front, ran out of fuel at Watkins Glen. He ended up winning at Pocono later on that year.
Okay, there you go.
So
fix yourself up.
Performed well at Watkins Glen. Let's call it that way. I just saw Schaus swing around Jim Brooks, so move him up to the 6th position. Look right there, like maybe Jim Brooks realized that the 72 was a little bit faster. Oh, look out, Matt Wagner! Car slow in front of him. I believe that might have been...
I think it was both Jim Brooks and Eric Schaus, because Wagner's now sliced his way through both of them. He was 3 seconds off the back of these guys, and now he's in front.
Who that car was that was slow in front. Might have been the 7 of Gary Corley, actually, that had spun out in front of them, but fortunately was pointed the right direction, so they were able to get around him safely. But you're right.
There's so much happening
Matt Wagner
on this
taking
track.
advantage of that, moving up to the 6th position. And bear in mind, Matt Wagner, you point this out here at the top of the broadcast, did not get to set a qualifying lap. Started this race all the way back from 13th.
So off in the background, Eric Schaus just ran wide at turn 2. Clayton caught the grass. I think he's managed to save it and pull it up.
As he's going to not lose any positions on track. He will remain in the 8th position, but lose a lot of time to Jim Brooks, who he was battling for that 7th spot. And now Brooks, oh, actually, he's just slowing going through Moss Corner. I saw a huge decrease in speed. Oh, we got in trouble. Rick Ravon on pit road. No. Wow.
Is that scheduled? That might be scheduled, though.
That might be scheduled. Boy, I know how to hype up pit stops. My goodness. Made that sound like it was the big one at Moss Sport.
It was the big one. It was Rick Ravon coming to pit road. That's a big one.
Them.
That's scheduled. Yeah, David Cook's in as well, and Nick DeGroot. So that's scheduled, 100% scheduled. So Bennett, once he got caught up behind those guys, definitely fuel saving. He's gone that extra lap. Will that play itself out? 17 laps here was the mileage on fuel. That gets us to lap 34. From there, another 18 laps will get them home. So they've got to run an 18-lap stint at some point tonight to make it a 2-stopper. Otherwise, it's going to be a splash and dash on that 3rd stop.
Jim Brooks is in this lap. Eric Schaus is in this lap as well. It's going to move Jeff Heisong up into the 7th position for the time being. As Bennett, Maleska, and Wagner are your top 3. And now here comes Bennett to pit road. Oh, man. Really had to get on the brakes for Dylan Moskowitz, who is coming to pit road just in front of him.
Yeah, that's that's a tough one. Look, it's been a tough night, like, all things considered, for a lot of the drivers here, and now Ravon and Cook are just going head-to-head. Maleska's made it that extra lap as well. That is going to be important for those guys. So, look, to be perfectly honest, I think Ravon and Cook, they're going to be a little bit stranded on fuel. The other side of that coin is they can push a lot harder. If they know that they're stranded in terms of the fuel numbers, they're just going to go for it. They've got to clear out as much time as they possibly can back to Henry Bennett. The pit lane transition time for a full stop, 26-27 seconds for pretty much the entire field here. They've got to make sure these two guys out in front, I'm probably targeting somewhere in the realm of 15 to 18 seconds. If they can get that far ahead, then that extra stop's not going to mean too much. They'll be right there in terms of overall pace.
Heisong making his first pit stop of the day. As you saw the transition for the race lead there through turn 1 with Bennett coming off pit road. Rick Rabon goes back to the point. He's got David Cook all over him, though, for that position. And there you see Bennett back there. Now, if we look at our telemetry right now, looks pretty even amongst the top 3 of the amount of time spent on pit lane, amount of time spent in their pit box. Not a lot of time lost, not a lot of time gained. I think this big gap you're seeing was the fact that what we don't see on our telemetry, but what we saw on our screen, was how slow Henry Bennett had to be on the access road getting onto pit lane, having to wait for that car in front of him of Dylan Moskowitz.
That, I mean, that's going to be a huge factor, and I mean, it's played out to the point of 1.5 seconds to David Cook ahead. Cook's made a little bit of a mistake on this lap, has opened up the gap now to Rick Ravon. It's out to nearly a second, but it's still close, and we've seen Ravon right here at Moss Corner struggling quite heavily, particularly with getting the car pulled up for 5A. That is going to be a huge factor as this night progresses. He's made mistakes there, and that is a big braking zone. Not really an overtaking opportunity, but if you show enough of a nose down there, it can force the car to have a bobble, and he made that move on Henry Bennett. He got aggressive with him down there. So ultimately, I'm expecting Henry Bennett to return the serve at some point and just show the nose at an awkward location, and Ravon's going to have to respect that.
After the first round of green flag pit stops, 10 drivers are on the lead lap, with Rick Ravon showing the way. 20 laps about to be completed here at Moss Sport. David Cook in second. An exchange for the fourth position. Bennett third. Nick DeGroot just got around Robert Maleska the third. I believe that pass was made over in turn 10, the final corner, coming onto the front straightaway. So move DeGroot up another spot inside the top 5 and drop Maleska back to the 5th position.
Just keep an eye on things. I think Wagner's closed about 2 seconds out of these guys. So right now, that doesn't mean a huge deal. But over the course of the entire race, that's going to be a massive amount. And I can tell you what, Matt Wagner has gone 1 lap longer than just about everyone else, bar Maleska and Henry Bennett as well. So that's going to be a key factor for the race tonight.
So I got to ask you, for those guys that decide to stay out that extra lap, now they could go the strategy of 17 laps for the second stint and then 17 laps for the final stint. Does that one extra less lap gain you any type of advantage except for maybe a little less time on pit road for fuel?
I mean, it's not a little bit of less time on pit road for fuel, because if they have to come down for an entire one extra stop, that's 10 to 15 seconds they're losing for anything. So they can be a lot more patient. They can be a lot more cautious. Now, the one bad part about running that one extra lap is that your tire wear is going to be a little bit higher. But if you're fuel saving, generally that means you're a little bit more conservative on the tires as well. So ultimately, I don't think there's much of a difference, especially if you're attached to somebody's rear bumper. You can really use that draft to your advantage. Henry Bennett right now, in his mind, he's just watching the 2 guys ahead of him. He's got to remain quick. He's got to keep his pace in the same realm as those guys ahead of him. He can't just fall away from these guys. But if he can just stay attached, he can just keep an eye on them. Should something happen, he's right there to pounce. He's in the best position in the race. I think for both Maleska and Wagner, they're happy to let that happen as well.
Charles Teed back to pit road, the 50 machine, and he's made the right-hand turn into the infield. Day done for Charles Teed, who had such a great run last week at Gateway, and looks like he will be finishing out the evening in the 16th position. Nope, correction, it will be 15th, as AJ Hobson just now retired from the race. He will be 16th in tonight's finishing results.
And it's been a difficult race. It's been a race of what's the word? Of attrition? Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, it's been a race of attrition tonight. You've got to keep your car clean. I mean, we saw Tellier struggling, and Tellier's a good enough driver. He's been there. He's not been... To be perfectly honest, if I was out there and in the field, I would quite regularly probably put myself right about where Tellier's been most of the way through the season. It's a difficult track. It is a very difficult track, but it's fast and it's flowing, and if you can get that balance down, it's good. But you've also got to be consistent, and a lot of the drivers have been, they've been quick. They've had flashes of brilliance and flashes of speed here tonight, but motorsport is just such a testing track, and you know, you've only got one real breath of fresh air on the whole lap. So look, I mean, these guys have got a tough ask ahead of them, let alone dealing with fuel numbers, let alone pace, let alone trying to make overtakes, dealing with lap traffic. There's so many different things that can just pop up throughout a course of a dark horse race. That these guys have done a phenomenal job to get as far through this race as they have, as close together as they have.
Drivers still have about 13 to 14 laps before they even have to think about coming back to pit road. Rick Raybon continues to show the way. He picked up his first win under the Dark Horse banner back at Pocono, looking for his second win of the season and first at a road course, as he's got David Cook, his teammate, right behind him in that second position. Another 2.8 seconds back to the third place Henry Bennett. We're going to step aside for a quick commercial break as you'll watch this battle for the race lead. You're not going to miss a thing as we're going FRN side by side.
Welcome, race fans. This is Paul Page, the voice of IndyCar. And today we're excited to present another IndyCar event brought to you by the Dark Horse IndyCar Series. From the Unzers to Mears, Foyt, and Andretti, now it's Corley, Peterson, Davies, Gardner, and Team. You can expect high speeds, incredible wheel-to-wheel action, and intense drama that you can only get in an IndyCar. So sit back and enjoy your favorite drivers from all over the world take the track. Dark Horse IndyCar drivers, start your engine. Welcome, race fans. This is Paul Page, the voice of IndyCar. And today we're excited to present another IndyCar event brought to you by the Dark Horse IndyCar Theory. From the Unzers to Mears, to Foyt and Andretti, now it's Corley, Peterson, Davies, Gardner, and team. You can expect high speed, incredible wheel-to-wheel action, and intense drama that you can only get in an IndyCar. So sit back and enjoy your favorite drivers from all over the world take the track. Dark Horse IndyCar drivers, start your engine.
Crossing the line, 26 laps completed here at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park for the Dark Horse Racing Series presented by Troy Lee Designs. Rick Ravon continues to lead, but you saw there on our FRN side-by-side, drivers up inside the top 5 having issues. Nick DeGroot spins it around over in Moss Corner and gets nailed by Robert Maleska III. Maleska had to come to pit road. He's used his faster pair, drops back to 7th. Matt Wagner just now passing DeGroot, who's come to pit road. He's cracked up into the top 5, up to the 4th spot.
Nick DeGroot's just come back down to pit road. So something's wrong again with Nick DeGroot. I don't know whether he didn't just go back out or something's happened
This
again.
This is his first pit stop since the contact we saw over there in Moss Corner. He did not come to pit road when Maleska did.
So Maleska came straight down. Maleska's now going to be 8 seconds clear. So I think Nick DeGroot was trying to get himself into some sort of pit window that he's targeting, but like they were both within they'd have to stop again to make it home from there. So that kind of rules them out. What you're seeing, where they are out on track right now, is going to be about their finishing position, minus any time that they can make up to cars around them.
Jim Brooks has now also moved up into the top 5, now running in 5th place. One thing I've been keeping an eye on here as well, I remember back at the Road America road course as well as at Watkins Glen, we saw a number of drivers use up a lot of their push to passes in the first half of the race. Well, we are over the halfway threshold and drivers have been a little bit more conservative with their push to passes here today. Most of it have been used up. Of the drivers that are still running, 3 have been used up by Jeff Heisong, but most of the drivers up here inside of the top 8, 9, they've used at most 2, and some of them even have all 10 still left, including our top 2.
Surprising from Ravon and David Cook as well. Henry Bennett, I'm curious. I'm going to say 1, that he's burned 1.
He has burned 2, actually.
Burned 2? That's surprising.
Well, here's the thing, too. He burned one of them in the first 2 laps. I'm not sure if he was trying to get away from
he was.
Rick Ravon or not, but he burned one of his up really early.
That's just him just saying, hey, I need to have a look at whether or not I can force these guys to respond. He learned very, very quickly that they just did not want to respond. And then there's been a couple of times throughout the race as well, whereby he's been surrounded by other cars. He's just needed to sort of clear out a little bit. So I'm not surprised that he's burned, more than 1. But I'm really, I understand why he burned 1 on the first lap, but that's not what I would have done. But hey, look, Henry Bennett's a much better driver than I am, so maybe I need to learn something from that.
Bennett right there, currently running 2.2 seconds off of Rick Ravon, and about 2.3 seconds now. It's now 2.2 seconds from him to David Cook. Now, we're seeing the 24 running behind the 2. Both of these guys teammates, and obviously right now I think David Cook just comfortable where he is, but at what point at a road course do the teammates then become competitors, realizing the checkered flag's on the line? Is it after we finish that second and final round of pit stops? Is there a certain laps to go mark where somebody decides, all right, now time to make my move? Or do you wait until that final lap? Is there enough time to make the move here at Canadian Tire?
I mean, it depends on a couple things. First and foremost, are you on the same strategy? With them pitting in the first round of stops at the same time, yes, they are. Therefore, it's sort of a little bit more patient. Yes, I'm the kind of guy that I'm always waiting until after the last pit stop, unless you're holding me up. And it's pretty clear that David Cook and Rick Ravon, they're not holding each other up. They're not really putting any pressure on each other as well. They're working together as teammates because right now it's about get yourself in range of that line. We talk about it every single week here at Dark Horse Racing Series. That's it's about making sure that you get yourself to the end is in sight, and then you sort of push on a little bit. Then you're sort of pushing to these guys. The guy that's done this the best throughout the field so far has been actually Robert Mileska III. He's made sure that he's saved enough fuel to get home. Henry Bennett, talked about him a couple times tonight. He's just watching these guys. He's happy. He wants these guys to fight. He wants these guys to try and send moves on each other. And he's just going to sit there in the background and just watch them. So the best thing that both of these guys, for both of their races, can do is just let this happen as it currently is. If Cook, all of a sudden something happens to Ravon, and Ravon falls immediately back in behind Cook, Cook will lead it away. They'll just let that happen again. They can't fight each other yet. There will come a moment, whether or not it's now. And the other side of the coin is this is David Cook's first week in the series as well. So whether or not there might even be team orders to try and help Rick Ravon get back to the point of things could happen as well.
Well, the last 2 times around, Henry Bennett has been about a 10th faster and the top 2. Gap has now been closed down to 2 seconds even between himself and Rick Ravon, and he's been putting together faster laps and faster, more consistent laps. Let's see about this time by. This time by, he was 3/10 quicker than David Cook and a 10th quicker than Rick Ravon. Nearly ran a 103 flat.
So what that says as well is that he's reached the maximum amount of fuel saving that he needs to reach. So from here on out to the end of this stint, him fuel saving doesn't get him another lap worth out of the tank. And with only a couple laps here to the second round of pit stops, that's smart. He's now hit his margins. Now he's closing in because he just wants to apply a little bit of pressure to the rear end of these guys to see what happens. You always want to test the waters. You want to warm them up a little bit. You want to make sure that they're aware that, hey, I'm here, I'm coming, you better watch out.
Saw it there on the left side of your screen with our ticker, Robert Mileska III picking up a spot on Jim Brooks, so he's now back up into the top 5 in the 5th position. He's got about 12.5 seconds, though, before he can get up to 4th place Matt Wagner, who right now is dealing with a bit of traffic. That was Eric Peterson just behind. I believe that's Jimmy Drynan's 99 just up ahead, and we've had a lead change. Rick Ravon's coming to pit road actually in the 2, so a bit of split strategy now between the teammates this time. And this is slightly earlier than we expected to see drivers on pit road, Scott.
This is important. This is important. So a couple things that could be happening here. Rick Ravon has managed to find a gap within traffic out on the track, which means that where he feeds back out here is very important. He feeds back out right next to Jimmy Drynan, so that doesn't work out for his strategy play. Drynan will very quickly get out of the way here, and then all of a sudden Rick Ravon's got a clean track. He can run as hard and fast as he can. Ravon has recognized, hey, I'm not getting to the end here. I'm compromising both of our strategies. Let's both not fight, but fight at the same time is exactly what this is. Rick Ravon is going to put the hammer down, and he does not want Henry Bennett to be able to see where he is and be able to respond.
Here comes David Cook to pit road. Also a lap machine behind him. I believe that's Gary Corley coming into pit lane. Actually, he was just ahead of him was Gary Corley. Henry Bennett now going to get the race lead. If we're kind of throwing out some numbers here, looking back to the first round of green flag pit stops, the furthest a driver made it on that run was 19 laps. So Rick Ravon would have to probably try and save a lap here on this final stint.
It's more than a lap. He's nowhere near in the realm of possibility in my mind. I don't think he can make this. It's too far. It's too much. And they don't have the margin between the two of them over Henry Bennett. This is Henry Bennett's race to win from here. I think these other guys, they've just thrown it away.
And is this deja vu? Because remember back 2 weeks ago to Auto Club, we ended up having Rick Ravon give up the trip to pit road, the opportunity to take on that fuel to get track position, and in the end, near the end of that race, it ended up biting him.
A different scenario, because that's under caution, right? I mean, Ravon was on a different pit strategy at that point in time, and things were playing out slightly differently. I think Rayvon's committed here he just cannot make it work. So he's automatically just locked himself into the alternative strategy. Now, if there's a caution here, which, again, very, very unlikely to happen to get a full course caution at this stage, get out of jail free card. The problem with that is he's handed the race lead over to David Cook. If he can sit here in behind it, well, I mean, the other side of the coin is he's now running in David Cook's wheel tracks, and they haven't had to reverse position out on track. They did it at the pit cycle, so it's possible. It's very improbable.
Big question mark on whether Rick Rayvon will be able to make it to the checkered flag. We've got two drivers that we know for sure are going to have to pit in the next lap or two, including our race leader Henry Bennett. The other would be the 18 of Jeff Highsong. And there's a couple of drivers that are going to have to also pit before the checkered flag. Robert Maleska III and Nick DeGroot both pitted outside of the fuel window to be able to make it the rest of the way. And as you point out, there is your race leader Henry Bennett coming to pit lane. This time didn't have a slower machine or a lap machine in front of him when he came to pit lane, so it'll be interesting to see what the gap's going to be now between himself and the two teammates of Cook and Rayvon.
And have a look at the gap between Cook and Rayvon as well. It's been 0.7 of a second. And remember that they reversed positions in that pit lane cycle, and Rayvon was ahead by 2 seconds, effectively, or it was 2.5 seconds over Henry Bennett. He's going to feed out right alongside these guys. That's them coming through turn number 1 right now.
He's going to be ahead of him. Oh, wow, that's close, setting down into Clayton Corner. A little too close for comfort there, as swinging around driver's left. David Cook's going to go back to the top position, but Bennett is right there, and he's actually split the teammates up.
Yeah, this is good for Bennett as well. It means he's sitting right in the middle of them. He can interrupt Rayvon. He's in Rayvon's sort of field of view. This is very, very smart from Henry Bennett, just by letting one of them to go. Don't let both of them go. It wouldn't surprise me. I think Rayvon's going to burn a push to pass. Yeah, there he goes. Definitely a push to pass there, I think.
And indeed he did, as he's now used 2 push to passes since we last updated. David Cook still has all 10, and Henry Bennett now is left with 6. A couple of guys that have really been using up their push to passes here on this second stint. Maleska III is now down to 3 push to passes, and Matt Wagner has used up a couple in the last few laps. He's now down to 5, so guys feeling that maybe it's the closest they're going to be around the competition, and using them at this point in time, saving just a few for the latter stages of this race. As we watch this battle here amongst the top 3, only separated by less than a second and a half. I want to remind you all that our starting grid and finishing results here tonight brought to you by lmcgear.com, your one-stop shop for all your motorcycle, camping, and backpacking needs. Specializing in camping gear that is ultra lightweight and compact, making it perfect for carrying on your motorcycle or in a backpack. And they also carry all the motorcycle accessories you need to get your gear safely down the road. Check out lightweight motorcycle campinggear.com today. And for all the Dark Horse fans, be sure that you use the promo code Dark Horse 10, that's DARKHORSE 10, to be able to get 10% off of any order. That's lmcgear.com. Appreciate them sponsoring the starting lineup and starting grid and the finishing results, that is, for this race. As a bit of traffic here ahead for the race leaders to deal with. That's Eric Schaus, who at this point in time is 8th, last car on the lead lap. Now he's 8th, first car 1 lap down.
Yep, and have a look at the pace from both Henry Bennett and Rick Rayvon. Both of them have started to fall a little bit off David Cook. Cook is one of the best guys situated in terms of fuel. Yeah, he needs to save a little bit, but he's pushing hard right now. I'm wondering, car's going to go around! Henry Bennett's going to arrive at the scene! That's Schaus! They've both managed to dodge that one. Really good driving by both Eric Schaus to keep it locked down on the outside there, and Henry Bennett to dodge the car spinning as well. So, look, couple things to talk about in terms of strategy right now. Yes, Henry Bennett pitted on lap 35, coming to lap 36. So I think he's good. I think he's saved more than enough fuel. That's like a 16-lap run, 16, 17-lap run, which is what we've said that he can do all night long. He's good. He's clean to the end. The 2 guys ahead of him, they have got to put the hammer down. They're nowhere near in the realm of fuel conservation. They've got to go for it. And for my liking, if you have a look at Henry Bennett, he's only 3 seconds off of this battle. He's still way too close. This race is Henry Bennett's to lose at this point in time.
Maleska III just got behind the pit road. That's a regularly scheduled stop for him.
Dylan Moskowitz just lost it in front of Henry Bennett. I don't know what's happening right now, but Henry Bennett, every time he comes up in a lap car, they've all of a sudden just seem to no longer be able to hang on to the thing.
That was, I believe, over in
Dylan
turn
Moskowitz.
3. Over in
Was,
Quebec
yep.
corner. And you gotta wonder, how is that affecting Henry Bennett's lap times then? Because I would assume he's having to bail out of the throttle, make sure he doesn't run into that spinning car in case they come back in front of him. And that's losing him time to these top 2, which I know he would love to be up here pressuring these guys, not to be able to save fuel.
Well, I mean, they can't, right? They know that they can't. Bennett knows that these guys can't save enough fuel. It's not even a question mark, which is why you've actually seen Rayvon and David Cook reverse their positions at this point in time. It's because Cook has an option to go to the end. Rayvon does not. So Rayvon has to bail out. Rayvon got past, and he's nearly a second distant. Immediately put the hammer down. He's got to go for it. The pace has come up, which is why you've seen Henry Bennett start to really close back in. But then at the same time, Henry Bennett's actually not losing time to Rick Rayvon. He's just closing in very aggressively on David Cook.
Let's crunch the numbers here a little bit. I believe the target number that you said of a driver coming to pit road and leaving pit road somewhere around 34 seconds that they would lose. If things stay the way they are, let's say Rayvon can't make it on what he's got in the tank. If he comes to pit road, he's going to drop back at least to the 4th position, maybe to 5th, depending on where Robert Miletzka III would be at the time. Right now, he's hovering around 34 seconds behind the race leader.
It's going to be a little bit less than that. It's going to be somewhere around the 20 second to 25 second mark. So he's going to pop back out safely into that gap. But he's also pushing on. David Cook's got a responsibility here for Rick Rayvon. He's got to hold Bennett up because this is actually a fight for the effective race lead once Rayvon's pit strategy has sort of finished itself off. And I have a feeling that Rayvon right now is punching through those push-to-passes like you wouldn't believe as well.
Also remember that Henry Bennett not only looking for his 3rd win on the season and 2nd at a road course this year, but also eyeing the big picture of taking the points lead into next week at the Milwaukee Mile. Came into this race only 2 points behind Miletzka III, and right now running 2 positions ahead of the 91.
And that's so important, is to go into, especially at Milwaukee, such an interesting track, can be very, very difficult to get overtakes done. The draft and the aero wake effect is so strong at that track that, you know, it's going to be difficult for these guys to get control of the field. So this is important for Bennett's championship hopes. And this is, look, if Rick Rayvon wanted to select a week to get a championship ally on board, I think he's picked the right one.
I would agree with you, who right now is under fire from Henry Bennett for that 2nd position. And just remind everybody here as well, obviously the Indy cars don't use the classic NASCAR point system. They use the IndyCar system, so 2 positions does not mean 2 points that Bennett has over Miletzka. Right now, I believe Bennett has actually led a lap, but let's assume that neither of those drivers have led a lap. With where they're running right now, Bennett would be the recipient of 35 points, Miletzka would be the recipient of 30. So that is 5 points that Bennett gains on Miletzka, so he would have at least 3 points over Miletzka heading into next week.
Okay, well, let's also throw another spanner in the works, and let's say Rick Rayvon can't make it on fuel, which we're both confident he can't, right?
Right.
So let's shuffle him back to 3rd place and shuffle Bennett up 1 extra position, and I can guarantee you that Henry Bennett has led a lap, so he gets the bonus point there. So there's some extra points to throw into the equation. If things then, let's get to the end of the race, Rick Rayvon slots into P3 and Henry Bennett picks up P2. That is the championship lead.
And it may be a moot point now. Miletzka on pit road, and this cannot be a regularly scheduled stop for the 91.
No, this is regularly. This is regularly scheduled because remember he's out of sequence because of that accident with De Groot.
Right, but he also, I thought, made a pit stop just a few laps ago.
Really? Okay, all right. My apologies.
So this is interesting. Not exactly sure what.
He did. You're right. You're 100% correct. He was in the pits on lap 39. So this is an extra stop, and he's already burned his fast repair.
I'm really confused about that. I mean, what would have led to him having to make that extra pit stop?
I'm guessing it's... Oh, his front wing was 5 kinds of messed up and 6 kinds of sideways.
Ah. Of course, this is definitely a track where you need that downforce, especially, I would think, over there in turn 2. We've seen a lot of
Oh,
drivers
it's
have
a
issues
mistake.
there with Clayton Corton.
Yeah, it's actually Clayton Corner. He's just run wide at Clayton Corner, spins the car on the grass, and fires it into the inside barrier after collecting the outside barrier. Actually, sorry, it's just the outside barrier. And it's on lap 41.
So that is huge. That is a huge points chunk that he's going to lose to Bennett. And again, to your point,
he's back into 9th.
To your point, we can't solidify Henry Bennett in the 3rd position right now. I mean, we can make assumptions of what the points gap is right now with where they currently run, but there's every likelihood he's going to pick up at least 1 more spot before the checkered flag, maybe 2, and be up there in the race lead to pick up this win. And when I was crunching the numbers with where Maleska was at the time, with Bennett in 3rd and Nick DeGroot in 5th, if they finished that way and then they moved respectively up, if Rayvon and Cook come to pit road, then it's +8 for Bennett if he finished 2nd, then +15 for Bennett if he finished with the race win. So it just continues to increase.
Yeah, it's not looking good, and that's a big margin. He can't afford this, Maleska, because he's got. I think there's another road course left in the overall margins as well. So look, I mean, you're gonna have to keep an eye on things. This is not good for Maleska's championship hopes. Last season, by this point, he had basically one hand on the trophy. He was so dominant. He was all over things. Not the case at the moment. That margin to Henry Bennett is only 2 points in the championship. So this is definitely, basically, Maleska would have to finish the position immediately behind and have led a lap, and that's just not going to happen from here.
No, it is not, and right now he is in a battle with his teammate Jeff Highsong. I think he actually just picked up that spot from Highsong, moving his way up now to the 8th spot, and he's just going to spend these last 8 laps trying to pick up as many positions as he possibly can. He's got about 20 seconds to make up before he gets to Eric Schaus in the 7th spot.
You know what? I'm just having a quick look through the points set. There are 3 guys that are attached at the top of the standings by 9 points separating them. Maleska to DeGroot is 9 points. The battle right now, every position that Maleska gains is gold, because these are positions he may not necessarily lose out to Nick DeGroot, but him and Nick DeGroot will be on near identical points.
It's a good point there. Nick DeGroot right now running in the 5th position, and I mean, bear in mind, you know, you talked about the tear that Maleska was on last season. 10 trips to victory lane. So far this year, he's only found victory lane 4 times. None of them have been at road courses, which he had a number of road course wins of those 10 victories last season. Had that performance that finished him out of the race at Road America, did not make the grid at Watkins Glen, and now it seems that here today at Canadian Tire, road course is once again his Achilles here in Season 4, but as mentioned, I mean, next week we go to the Milwaukee Mile, we go to Twin Ring Motegi the following week. I mean, these are places where he could definitely mount a comeback, work his way up through the points again, so even more important here to get every position, every bit of points available here in these final 6 laps.
I'm curious, Seth. Tell me the push to pass scenario for Maleska, because right now he is he's just over a second back off Jeff Highsong and Jim Brooks, merging the 2 guys together. Jim Brooks is 3.5 seconds up the road from him, so there's a shot here for Maleska if he's got those push to passes available.
Right now, out of the drivers that are still running, he has the fewest. 2 push to passes left for the 91.
And what does Jeff Highsong and Jim Brooks got?
Highsong currently sits at 5 push to passes. Jim Brooks, all 10 still available to him.
So I'd say Jim Brooks is actually not going to button bound, which I would say means that he's got effectively none available to him. But then again, Jim Brooks hasn't been in a situation so far the race where he's really wanted those push to passes. He's got the opportunity here though to defend. I'm hoping he's got that button bound, because if he can manage to maintain the margin to Robert Maleska and beat him overall, that is a huge impact here for Maleska's championship hopes. And if Maleska, right, he's got a long way. He's made a mistake on this lap already. He's dropped a few seconds back off of Jeff Highsong. Highsong's just gunning it away from him. There's an opportunity here for Highsong to gather up onto Jim Brooks. If they fight and they hand the positions back over, that is the difference between 2nd and 3rd in the championship for Maleska at this point in time.
You know, we mentioned the fact that he's really kept his nose clean here today, which has played a big part into him running as well as he is, but he's also laid down some really fast lap times and some very consistent lap times. Matt Wagner has been the driver that has worked his way up through the field the most, 13th to the 4th position right now for that 11.
Pit road to 4th position. And it's about consistency for Matt Wagner. He hasn't put a foot wrong, and that's really what it's been about. He's driven quick, yeah, sure, but he's driven consistently. If you have a look at pretty much every other driver in the... Yeah, I knew that was coming from Raven.
Yep, I wondered when. We had him projected about a lap and a half short.
And this will be interesting to see where he pops out in relation to Matt Wagner. There's an opportunity for Matt Wagner to go toe-to-toe here and potentially grab another spot, and this could just basically signal potentially the death of Ravon's championship hopes. Wagner's 10 seconds, less than 10 seconds back, and coming out of pits runs you all the way down to turn 3 before that momentum loss actually finally catches back up to you.
If it comes down to those two in the battle for the final spot...
Wagner's in as well!
He is indeed. I was going to say, he had 4 push to passes left. Rick Ravon had 8, so Ravon would have the advantage, but Wagner on pit lane. And again, this has me perplexed because I had him good to make it the rest of the way.
Yeah, I'm starting to... David Cook's in.
Here comes Cook. Okay, here's a possibility. All right, and I know that this is something that happened to me in last year's Watkins Glen race as well, where I saw drivers hitting a lot sooner than I was expecting they were. At Watkins Glen, we saw drivers be able to stretch it pretty far in the early stages. That's because they had the benefit of draft. Later on in the race, because they had no draft, the pit window actually got smaller in terms of the number of laps they could run. Is that what we're seeing here? That all these guys are running out there with no draft, nobody to be able to create a slipstream for them. That's taking and using up a lot more fuel, and what we were originally thinking was the fuel window of 17 to 19 laps early on has shrunk to maybe 13, 14, 15 laps that they can make it.
I play devil's advocate. I want to say yes. Now, I do want to say yes in the fact of an oval standpoint, but this isn't an oval. The clutching, the ability the drivers have to save fuel around a road course is so much stronger because there's so many more corners that you can clutch on your way down into them. The time loss on a road course as well is much, much smaller. And it means a lot less with longer lap times. Like at what stage do we do just over a minute lap times? I think it's about Pocono's the only one, and you're on the gas for so long at Pocono that again, it's not a huge margin that you can really save fuel. So look, I think Bennett might be the only one that can make it home out of these guys, and ultimately Wagner might not be as dead in the water as I thought. De Groot's only 10 seconds back distant off of him, and importantly, Maleska has lost time. Maleska has lost a boatload of time to Haisong and Brooks.
Right now, back in the 9th position is Maleska, and
his last lap time, 106.0, Seth. 106.0. That's 3 seconds slower. He's at risk of losing another spot to Eric Peterson.
I'll tell you what, if Henry Bennett is saving fuel, then good on him, because right now, with seeing the 2 and the 24 dive into pit road when they did, Henry Bennett, by my calculations, is half a lap short. So we're going to have to see here as he takes the white flag if he's going to be able to make it back to the checkers.
Here's the thing. He's got an 18-second margin. If you were to run 18 seconds slower, you would burn so much less fuel that it wouldn't matter. So I think Bennett's good. I think he's got it covered, and I think Ravon and David Cook just did their math wrong, and that's going to be what ends up deciding the race in that stage of things. Oh, I've got to keep my eyes on Maleska, though. That is so important to me, is where this guy finishes, because he ran a 105.2 on that last lap. So I think he's safe to Eric Peterson, but only just. So whatever happened, however he missed his braking marker, there's definitely still some floor damage to that car, actually. I can see it.
Well, at Watkins Glen, we ended up having only 4 drivers finish on the lead lap. That's Nick de Groot in the 5th position, just ahead of Henry Bennett. Looks like 5 drivers will be on the lead lap here as Henry Bennett, 3rd win on the season, back-to-back victories for the 007, and 2nd win on the year at a road course as he takes Canadian Tire Motorsports Park here today.
Yeah, what a race from Henry Bennett. Controlled it the whole way through, knew what his fuel numbers were, knew where he needed to be, knew how he needed to get himself there. I'm wondering why he's battling here with Nick de Groot. Like, this is just not even, there he goes. He's finally rolling all the way out of it. He didn't need to fight that one. That's Ultimately, Nick DeGroot's still turning his laps there, Henry. Let him run, buddy.
The thing I love, Henry Bennett is British, but if we take a look here on the front of his race car, he is donning Canadian maple leaf right there on the nose of his race car. So how about that, getting into the spirit here, being just
you go
north
back
of the
far
border
enough,
of the
Seth.
United States.
We're all British.
I mean, you make a valid point. We're not all Canadian, though.
Well, I mean, yeah, true. Canada, more French colonialism, but hey, look, we're all. You know what? Let's not get into that.
Henry Bennett picked up his first win of the season at a road course back in the second race on the schedule at Road America. Followed it up with a speedway win last week at Gateway, and here today, easily going to take the points lead into the Milwaukee Mile as he gets to burn it down the front straightaway here. Just a short little burnout there for the fans at Moss Sport, as he's going to be picking up his third win on the year, which moves him to second on the board for most wins on the season here in Season 4. Taking a look here at our official finishing results from today's event. There's a couple of comeback stories in this one as well, if you consider the fact that Nick DeGroot had that major contact over in Moss Corner with Robert Maliska III, was still able to finish up inside the top 5. Matt Wagner didn't get to set down the qualifying lap during the Q session and was able to work his way from 13th up to 4th. And you've also got a couple of guys that we saw facing the wrong direction, spun out, in Eric Schaus and Jeff Heisung. They bring it home in 6th and 7th place.
Yeah, Nick DeGroot in particular, what a run from him. I mean, that incident right in front of Maleska, I definitely feel there'll be a post-race penalty probably applied to Nick DeGroot there because he didn't check his relative. He just merged straight back out into traffic and ultimately affected another driver. So I expect him to lose the place there. Potentially gets put down. See, it's a difficult one because he's the last car that lands on the lead lap. If he gets a post-race time penalty, and that's the only penalty he receives, he won't actually lose another spot. He will maintain his position. So there'll probably be another penalty applied in that instance. It could be a points penalty, which will be really interesting for the championship standings as well.
I'm trying to remember. I'll go back and look, but I don't think that there was a single road course race that Maleska III finished outside the top 5 last season. 9th place here tonight. We already documented his struggles at Road America, and you talked about the fact that there is one more road course stop coming up later on this season at Long Beach. So, boy, you gotta think that he's looking for some road course redemption when we get there, because the road courses have not been kind to him this year.
I mean, Long Beach is a difficult one as well. It is, from Maleska's point of view, the mistakes that I'm seeing him make are in the longer format style of road course races. It's not the first pit stop. It's in that second to third run. So it's being, he's quick. He's definitely got the pace to be there and thereabouts. He doesn't have the consistency. And that is just a mind-blown style of effect, because this is the guy that won so many races last season. This is the gold standard in terms of how many times he's won within a season, right? This is the guy that if you're going to say, hey, look, I need to beat somebody, I need to come out here and I need to be as quick and as consistent as, it's Robert Maleska. He was leading the championship come here tonight, and mistakes are what's cost him. Not small mistakes either. When you look at, now you take away 2 road course races and 2 major mistakes at road course races, guy would be comfortably leading the championship, no questions asked. But those are 2 major mistakes that have ended races for him from a champion. Well, not ended races, but being very close to ending races in both aspects. So that's huge, and that's something that he's really got to all of a sudden settle back down, and he's got to pick up the pieces, man. Got to Motegi. This is a guy he's got a lot of work to do, because he cannot afford another finish like that at Motegi.
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry, Long Beach.
Saw down to 14th place Mike Teller. He was the last car to finish. Teed, Hobson, Herrick, and Gale Brooks finished out of the race. And I'm just going to bring this up. I know that this has no reflection on the drivers, because I guarantee you they have turned laps here in the past at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. But there are a lot of new tracks that were added to the schedule here that were not on the schedule back in Season 3. So I might have thrown these guys a little bit of a curveball in that respect, but And again, too, it's a road course. You never know what's going to happen. Sometimes it's your day, and sometimes it isn't. And if you have a good day, you want to keep the momentum going. If you have a bad day, you just look to next week to try and mount a comeback, get back those points that you may have lost. But how about a driver that turned his first laps in a dark course race car here tonight? Let's see if we could talk with our third place finisher, David Cook. Hey, David, Scott and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Hey guys, I got you.
Man, a great run for you here today in your debut. Got to be out in front, lead some laps, stayed up inside the top 3 all day long, but man, we thought that everybody looked like they were going with the 17-lap strategy and maybe stretch it 18 laps on one of those stints to be able to make it the rest of the way. Seemed like that pit window got shorter, though, and you and your teammate not able to make it to the checkered flag on fuel. I mean, what was going on there in terms of that strategy? Was there just a miscalculation, or what, did you think that there was no way somebody could do it on 2 stops?
Yeah, we just got the calculation wrong. I think early on when we saw him back off, I think we probably should have followed what he was doing, but I think we wanted to try to stretch it out a little longer. And unfortunately, it didn't really go our way. I was able to get one more lap good to Rick, but he just beat me on speed there and got into second, and he had an awesome run.
What's the mindset between you two working together as teammates coming into this? Obviously, Rick Ravon does actually have championship hopes. Unfortunately, with his health and what's happened over the last couple of weeks, he's fallen a little bit of way back. But our team order is going to play a factor there.
No, there's no team orders. I mean, Rick is, fast as all heck, so he had me on speed, no problem there when he was out front. And after that, it was just when I came out of the pits the last time, it was third was good enough, and I didn't really have a good enough run going down the straightaway to make a pass. So it was, him second, my third, and I think we're plenty happy with that.
Canadian Tire is obviously a very fast road course. We saw a lot of drivers have a lot of difficulty. Clayton Corner, Quebec Corner, they claimed a couple of cars. Of course, Moss Corner always seems to be a difficult part of the road course. Where was the struggle point for you? Where was one of the places early on where you had some issues and tried to remedy that as the race went on?
Yeah, probably Quebec Corner for me. It was very twitchy, especially on the opening laps there, and it almost caught me out a few times. So it was just really working on that corner for me, making sure I didn't make a mistake and loop the thing and make a big idiot out of myself. But I think we did okay after a while there. Just made a few fine adjustments to how I was doing my steering input into the corner, and after that, we were okay.
Well, congratulations on a great debut here in the Dark Horse Racing Series. Third place here tonight at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. David, we're now going to give the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Cool, yeah. Well, first of all, thanks to Dark Horse for letting me join the league when I did. I really appreciate that. My buddy Rick, he's such an awesome guy, and I just thank everyone and all his friends and stuff for keeping him going during that really hard time. And my mind was on Rick a lot this past week, and so it was hard. We've been racing together for a while now, and he's just such an awesome guy. So thanks to everybody.
Well, David Cook's debut results in a podium finish, P3 here at Mosport. Congratulations, David, on a great performance there from Morton Spirit. Looking forward to seeing what you're able to do when we head to Speedway next week, a short track at that, at Milwaukee Mile.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. And thanks for the awesome commentary, too. Appreciate you.
And let's see if we can now dial up his teammate who finished his second place. Nice to see him back in the field here tonight. Let's talk with Rick Ravon. Hey, Rick, Scott and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Hello.
We got you, Rick. Well, first off, great to be able to see you back out there on track. We continue to think about you. We're hoping that you're feeling better, but man, didn't look like it affected your driving style at all. That car was still fast out there, led a good portion of this race. You bring it home second place and on the road to recovery in the points that you lost last week. The car looked pretty fast, but just couldn't quite make it there on fuel. We talked just moments ago with your teammate David Cook. You guys had a little bit of a miscalculation. If you'd been able to be on the same strategy as the 007, do you think you could have held him off there for that checkered flag?
I honestly, this is a miracle to me because I still feel like I'm about 70%, and I really wasn't pushing it too hard. I just wanted to keep it on a dance floor, stay out of trouble, just be smooth and consistent, and maybe through attrition move up, and that was the plan. But to my surprise, we were quick, and I don't honestly know why because I really wasn't pushing very hard. And it was it was just wonderful to have Dave Cook out there. He's a great guy, my new teammate with our pretty identical cars almost. He's got the black, I got the blue. I was so proud to see him out there running, out in front and second, third, and the top three all day. It was just such a great day for the team. So happy to be back. I needed this so bad. I was watching the race last week from the hospital, and I'm listening to you guys commentate, and I'm watching everybody um, Gateway is usually a really good track for me, and I was very disappointed because I figured we had a top three in us, at least, if not maybe a win. You never know. But they're so good and they're so quick here, and it was really hard to watch from the hospital. But I'm sorry if I'm forgetting one of your questions. I'm a little bit out of it.
Mate, look, Seth and I both said to each other prior to the broadcast, it's so good to see Rick. Like, you're just such an iconic part of this series to us because you were always so full of that energy. And it was, I think you broke both of our hearts last week when we heard you won in the race and what the reason was behind it. So, talk to us about the road to recovery this week. It's been a long week. At what point did you say, yeah, I can definitely do this race?
Well, got out of the hospital because the oxygen level came up, and so I didn't. They were thinking of sending me home with oxygen, but I said I really don't think I need it. And I walked around and walked around, and we're waiting for the levels to drop, and they stayed. And they said, "Okay, you know what, Mr. Avon, I think you're going to be okay. We can release you without the oxygen." And I says, "Thank God." And then Monday night, these guys, thank God, God bless them, they threw up a practice session. And that, for me, even though I was very, very weak and a little dizzy and just out of it, I said, I got to get back in the groove, man. I got to get back on the horse. I got to get out there and get a rhythm going and just get back into it, man. I just got to do it. This league is too important to me. It's probably the best league that I've ever been involved in as far as the quality of competition and the way it's run and just all of it, man. Dark Horse is amazing, and to be up there and leading the points, even just for a few races, is an accomplishment. And I'm so happy to be here. I was so happy to get back into it and to get some laps under my belt. I think at that point I said, well, if the recovery continues, even if it's a little bit, by Tuesday I'm just going to relax on Tuesday. But Wednesday I got to get back out there, get the rhythm going, and just I'm on steroids, I'm on this, I'm on that, and it's helped me get through the race. Hopefully by next week, maybe I'll be close to 100%. I hope so. But I just had such a blast tonight. I knew we weren't going to make it. I don't know how Henry does it. I really don't. I got to watch his in car and how he stretches it and stretches it. We don't have the option to turn the boost back or anything like that to help us. So it's short shifting and it's clutching and stuff like that. And he stayed out 2 or 3 laps more than us, and I said, "Wow, I don't know how he does it. It's just he's amazing." That was a fantastic job, 2 in a row for Bennett. I watched him last week. That was an amazing win. So proud of that guy, handsome Henry Bennett, I call him. And he came back from adversity last week. Very, very impressive. It's good to see him get his 2 in a row. But man, we're still in pursuit for that championship. I'm just hoping for the best.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, if the performance tonight was at 70%, the rest of the field better watch out when you're back at 100%. We certainly hope it's going to be next week when we head to the Milwaukee Mile. Rick, we're now going to give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
Eric Peterson, thank you. Charles Teed, thank you. Gail Brooks, thank you. Henry Bennett, thank you. Trying to think of the rest of these guys. Dylan, um, there's so many guys who were giving me well wishes and saying, "We're praying for you, Rick. We're thinking of you. Come back soon." And I'll tell you what, honest to God, in the hospital, literally brought me to a little bit of tears because the support and the encouragement and the prayers was everything that I needed from this group. I found a home, baby. I love this place. Thank you guys for putting on this Dark Horse, and thank you guys up in the booth, FRN, and everybody who's watching, all the guys who race clean, the courteous guys who are courteous to the leaders, and this is just it's run right, man. I've been doing this a long time, and this is the best league. It really is. I'm so proud to be a part of it. Dave Cook, I love you, man. Thanks for hooking up with me. I think we're gonna have a lot of good days ahead. And last but not least, the Lord Jesus. I love Jesus with all my heart, soul, mind, and breath. And if it wasn't for the Lord, getting me through this, I don't know what, I mean, I was in pretty bad shape, man. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I was passing out. I couldn't catch my breath. Didn't know what to expect. And the Lord brought me through this. Thank you so much, Jesus. Thank you.
Well, here tonight, he brings it home. Second place, the Canadian Motorsports Park. I sounded Australian for a moment there unintentionally. I'm so sorry, Scott. Anyway, Rick
No. Have another crack. Go again. Let's do it again. Australian accents, everybody.
Canadian. Anyway, Rick Raybon, P2 here tonight at Mosport. There, I'll say that in American accent.
Is it time for me to introduce our winner?
Can you? It's so good to have you back, man. I actually kind of want you to do it.
Heck yes, let's do it. I know it sounds cliche, but what the heck? Let's just say it. The man, the myth, the legend, ladies and gentlemen, handsome Henry Bennett now with 2 in a row under his belt, and here he is. Henry, fantastic job.
The one issue is we aren't able to get Henry for post-race interviews.
Well, he got the introduction of a year. Maybe it's like the summoning. He'll show up next.
Anyway, it was fun.
Well, great run, Rick. We hope that you continue to get better. Be great to see you back at 100%. Continue to get better, man. We're thinking of you.
Thank you so much, guys. I love you guys. You're awesome, both of you guys. Thank you.
We love you, Rick. I do. I love that man. He is
Absolutely.
He's just a gentle, kind, loving soul. It hurt me. It physically hurt me knowing that he got COVID. He's just such a good person. He's such a big part of this league and such an important part of this league. And to miss out on having him last week at a track that he loves as well was just heartbreaking, man. And it hurts me listening to him in pain like that because again, he's such a gentle, loving, kind man. Anyway.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you 100%. I mean, obviously, 2 things that we're looking forward to. We're looking to the road to recovery for him physically, and we're also looking forward down this home stretch of maybe seeing the road to recovery of him getting back up there to the top of the point standings as well. That's what he had before he was hit with COVID. We saw him lose the points lead since he couldn't make the grid last week and subsequently dropped to 4th in the point standings. Things are going to get interesting, though, because the point standings are in. With Bennett picking up this victory, he is obviously the new points leader. But now it's 32 points back to Maleska, 33 points back to DeGroot, 34 points back to Rick Raybon. 2nd through 4th are separated by only 2 points. And all 3 of those guys, 2 former champions and the former points leader, they are going to be gunning for Henry Bennett down this home stretch.
To be perfectly honest with you, there has been a couple of races this season where Henry Bennett has not had the best race. Think back to Pocono where Bennett and Maleska came together and had an issue when we were trapped laps down. Those guys had probably one of the worst races on memory for Henry Bennett. Robert Maleska's just had a whole series of those. You can say Pocono, you can say Road America. Now you can add Canadian Tire Motorsport Park into that as well. This is not what I expected from Maleska. When we saw him go out at Michigan at the start of the season and dominate in such a commanding, fuel-saving race, I thought it's over. We're just going to be, at the end of the season, we're just going to be saying Robert Maleska III wins this championship back-to-back, dominates the season. These drivers have proved that's not the case. The racing... Here's the thing, Seth. Do you know why all these accidents have actually happened?
I would assume the level of competition. More drivers up towards the front with a blanket thrown over them.
Yeah, that is it. Because the entire competition is stepped up. We talked about it, I think, I think it was during Backfire Sim Racing Cup a couple weeks ago. What causes accidents within traffic? There is a small percentage that every time you have a car-to-car interaction, that it will result in an accident, right? Over the percentages, eventually that'll happen. When these cars are racing so close together, side by side, multiple laps in a row, overtaking happening nearly every single lap of the season, it's going to happen. For just about everyone in that top 5, it has happened multiple times this season. Actually, top 6, throw Bronson Stafford in there, Gail Brooks, everyone. It's happened to everyone this season. We have not seen the clean, concise, perfect season from a single driver. Full stop. Have a look at how close that championship is. That's the best part about it. Every one of them has made mistakes. They've still had to make sure that they pick up the bag of points that's left over at the end of the night. That is what has been on offer. You cannot afford to have a bad night, leave the server, go do something else. If you want to win this championship, you have a bad night, you hang around, you take an 8.
Right.
That is,
points are important. Consistency is important. If you can't have that consistency, get every point possible, because you don't know what the scenario is going to be when we get to the season-ending Indy 500.
Well, have a look at Robert Mileska III tonight. Had an opportunity, ran wide at turn number 2, ended up in the fence, removed the massively banged up the front and rear wing, could not continue, had to come down pit road. That cost him 3 to 4 spots, potentially could have still had an option to go further forward if he still didn't have damage to the side of the floors of the car as well. That has cost him such a massive amount. If he finishes P5, he is half of that points gap to Henry Bennett. He is still in with a really, really good shot, and he only needs Henry Bennett to slip up minorly and finish, say, P5 in one race, and he's back there in the hunt for the championship. Now he's got to be more convincing with his victories. He's got to make sure his competition aren't anywhere around him, and he's only 2 points from being outside of the top 3.
Well, remember how crazy the racing was when we were at New Hampshire earlier on this season. We ended up seeing 5 drivers lead more than 20 laps in that race. That was the Magic Mile. Next week, we head to the Milwaukee Mile, where we could be in for much of the same. Going to be very interesting to see how drivers are going to react to Henry Bennett's win here tonight. Does Mileska find his way back to victory lane for a 5th time this season? Do we see Rick Ravon back at 100% to pick up his 2nd win of the season? Nick DeGroot looking to be another multi-time winner as well, as all 3 of those guys are going to be trying to close up the points gap that Bennett built over them here tonight at Mosport. Going to be a lot of fun to see, and still a lot of racetracks after Milwaukee Mile before we eventually get to the season finale and crown ourselves a champion. But what a race here tonight. 3rd of our 4 road course stints here on the schedule. 1 more remains. Bennett so far is 2 for 3 in the road courses, picking up win number 3 on the season. Scott, it's been a great one here tonight in Canada. Appreciate you joining me in the booth.
Oh, mate, are you kidding? I'm back here every week. Staple me. It's like point standing, staple Scott Rankin to the bottom of it, because I'm going to be commentating every week. The racing's been so fantastic. Yet again, a road course. Give it to me, baby.
A terrific one here tonight. Looking forward to seeing what Long Beach, the final road course stop, will have on the table, as that's just a couple of races prior to the season finale. But again, next week, we're going to be at the Milwaukee Miles. We continue on the schedule here for the Dark Horse Racing Series. Appreciate everybody who joined us here tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed our coverage. For Scott Rankin, I'm Seth Cole. You've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flat Out Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flat Out Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flat Out Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flat Out Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.